The big worry for me, I would say even a likelihood during my lifetime, is a big epidemic.
There will be a surprise outbreak.
Greater Melbourne is under a stage 4 lockdown for 6 weeks. And that means sweeping new restrictions, including a 9...
Honourable members, I will now propose the question for debate. Be it resolved that the House take note of the statement by the President under Section 9(1) of the Constitution, setting out the specific grounds on which the decision to declare the existence of a state of public emergency was based. Member for Superior.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to join the debate today. And after I listened to the Honourable Prime Minister, I've heard nothing new, nothing different, no plans to go forward. It has been a repetition of the roadshow that goes on a weekly basis. The various press conferences, I think the only thing was missing today, that the Prime Minister didn't launch off into attacking the population, blame the population, blame Kamala, blame the opposition. That's the only difference. So nothing new as we face a further lockdown in the country. And what we are gathered for today is to note the statement of the President made on the 17th of May 2021, made under Section 9(1) of the Constitution, setting out specific grounds for the decision to declare a state of emergency. But I didn't hear the Prime Minister give the justification. I didn't hear the Prime Minister go into details about what was the basis to declare a state of emergency. And those things are contained in the statement. I want us to appreciate and understand that by Section 80 of our Constitution, 80, the President, in the context of making a statement under Section 9(1) of the Constitution, which is what happened here, is in effect a statement of the Cabinet. That statement that we have been asked to debate, to take note of, is a statement of the government, of the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, this SOE is novel in itself, Madam, just as a novel coronavirus, because it seeks to address, for the first time in our country, I think we had about 5 other states of emergency, this is the first one that deals with a health crisis, and therefore it would differ from others that have gone before. What the government did then in its statement through the President was to cite the threat of the deadly COVID-19 pandemic, which thus far has caused the untimely and tragic deaths of about 375 persons in our country, fathers, sons, daughters, mothers, grandparents, really loved and cherished human beings, about 375 persons up to yesterday's count. And the government predicated the decision, as contained in the statement, on a number of things. One was a surge in the number of persons infected. Secondly, an increasing number of deaths. Thirdly, an overwhelming of the parallel healthcare system to the point of where it's really on the brink of collapse. Those things, those reasons are set out in paragraph 9 of the President's statement. Now, as a government, as a nation, this is not a desirable place to be at all. I don't think any government, I don't think any leader anywhere would want to strip people of their rights, take away their fundamental rights and freedoms, resort to a last resort option under the Constitution. I don't even want to do that lightly, that it would be given further thought as to what we should do. And I felt that the Honourable Prime Minister, in piloting this motion, would have spent some more time in saying why it has become necessary to strip citizens of their rights. Before I go further, Madam, I want to offer condolences to all sons and daughters of our soil who lost their lives, to their families, to their loved ones. Condolences to them. I empathize with those who are going through the pain and suffering with the disease, with the COVID disease. And there are those others who we have to empathize with who don't have the money to provide for their families because they've lost their jobs in this lockdown. But at the same time, we have so much to be grateful for and to give thanks for. The frontline medical workers, the frontline members of the TTPS, the TTDF, prison, and other essential workers. To all other workers, good Samaritans, all these persons out there, their daily efforts are invaluable to the well-being and survival of our country. We say thank you to them. And let me state at the outset, so there is no misunderstanding, the opposition has no objection to the state of emergency. Given the grim and dire circumstances that the government has placed the country in, this is where we are now because of the mismanagement and incompetence of the government. So whilst we support it because of where they've brought us to, at the same time we reserve the right to raise concerns, we reserve the right to hold the government to account, and we will continue to do that. In fact, from the very outset of the pandemic, since January 2020, when we alerted others, government and the population through various channels about the impending danger of the pandemic, we made it very clear that we were willing to meet and adopt a bipartisan approach to battle the pandemic's worst effects. But what happened? I remember writing to the Prime Minister asking for a meeting to be held. We did hold a meeting. And we didn't just talk, we presented a document, we presented a memo setting out certain suggestions. Some would be considered, some may not be considered. We did that, some very early o'clock in the game. We practically begged the government from time and time to take the threat seriously. And what happened? We were met with arrogance. Undoubtedly, I think that is the mask of the most hapless and hopeless incompetent government. So here we are, in the opposition, not objecting to the SOE because that's where they've brought us. But we do object, Madam Speaker, to other things. We don't object to the SOE, but we object to the government led by the Honourable Prime Minister presenting to date absolutely no coherent, realistic, social, economic or health plan to take us out of the pandemic from before, from during, which is now, and even thereafter. So we get a repeat of these press briefings, and yes, well, the whole world is suffering all of this. Yes, all that's great. Who doesn't know that? Everybody knows that, that's fine. But what do you intend to do? What are your plans? Tell us what you will do apart from locking down the country. And whilst it is you do that, we object as well to this dangerous regime. Now it's like throwing up your hands in the air. Last resort constitution, lock the country down. Under this PNM, Trinidad and Tobago is a nation gasping for breath as we slip into a deadly coma based on their policies and mismanagement. And so, Madam, whilst the reduced time that we all have, because not only are people's movements restricted in the Parliament, we have reduced time, I will just deal with a few of the issues arising out of that statement, and my colleagues will carry through on it. So the first question is this: what has been the effectiveness of lockdowns? This is not the first one we've had in our country. What is the effectiveness? The Prime Minister comes today, no data is presented, no science is presented, no academic research is presented as to how and why a lockdown will be effective, a lockdown is essential. The Prime Minister does not tell us what his friends at the WHO have to say about lockdowns. These lockdowns are called non-pharmaceutical interventions, NPIs. And you know what the WHO says? Yes, they say large-scale physical distancing measures and movement restrictions, often referred to as lockdowns, can slow COVID-19 transmission. Yes, the WHO says that. But then the WHO also says such measures disproportionately affect disadvantaged groups, people in poverty, migrants, displaced persons, the ones who live in the most overcrowded and under-resourced environments. It affects people differently. And the most vulnerable are the ones that are the most hard hit when this happens. And then the WHO said, well, yes, look, maybe you have no choice. And that's what I think has happened. That's where we've reached, because you have not managed this thing properly. So take that extra time. Take the extra time. The WHO recognizes that, yes, stay home, lockdown, restrictions. But that you must recognize as well that those lockdowns are, in an effect, to buy time. That's what the WHO says, a buy time. And what governments must do during that time that they've bought, that extra time, is to do all they can to build capacities to detect, to isolate, to test, to care, to trace, to quarantine, engage, empower, and enable populations. Has our government done that? Has any of that happened? Is there any plan today that we were told, look, that's what we're going to do. We're going to use this lockdown time. We are buying this time for the distancing, and we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nothing. Nothing. We keep going back every time they speak. We're going back, the whole world. What happened in Italy? What happened in Europe? Well, what's happening in Trinidad and Tobago? What's happening here? And what do you intend to do about it? What are your plans? So let's turn to the presidential statement itself. Paragraph 5 of that statement talks about the announcement of a public health emergency situation. Prime Minister mentioned it. January 30, 2020, there was an announcement of this PHEIC. And you know what the statement says? And again, this is not the president, this is the cabinet. This is what it says in paragraph 5 of the statement. From the announcement of the PHEIC, the nation's public health machinery has been in overdrive, led by the Minister of Health, doctors, healthcare workers. Madam, that is totally untrue. Because the date of the announcement of the PHEIC was January 30, 2020. That's when they were in this parliament denying us the right to debate the matters urgent. That's when the Minister of Health told this parliament, look, that thing not going to explode in Trinidad. That's when the CMOH, in answer to Dr. Bowden at JSC, said, no, that's not coming here. So at January 30, when we were raising this matter, to the government it was not important. To the parliament here it was not important. So to say that from the announcement of this, Speaker, which was 30 January 2020.
Madam Speaker,
Thank you.
You finished?
Yeah.
Madam Speaker,
Yes,
I rise on 48.1. The government has never denied the opposition its right or ability to speak in this parliament.
Please continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The motion did not qualify under the then standing orders. In this parliament here, in this house, in the Senate likewise, was held that it did not qualify. So it was never debated. To say that on the 30th of January, wow, government was busy, they were in overdrive, is furthest from the truth, Madam Speaker. We continue. The presidential statement, paragraphs 6 and 10, speaks about a public information program. The president's statement talked about a public information program was instituted, particularly by means of regular media briefings, paragraph 6. And then paragraph 10 talks about, while some have followed the urgings of the guidelines and protocols, about the spread of the virus, this is what the President's statement says. It is either they have not received the messaging or are unable or unwilling to abide by it. So here it is a statement from the government that's telling us, hey, we had a great public education program. And here's it always telling us, ugly people didn't want to hear it, boy. They didn't listen. They're not following it. But then you see you can't carry out a public information program by buffing people. It doesn't work. You can't do that. Your track record, the public doesn't trust anything you say. From the start, you gave mixed messages about the seriousness of this virus. From the very start, government downplayed the threat of the virus. Yes, they did have daily briefings at first. Now I think it's like 3 times per week. But this has evolved into a kind of political platform where officials resort to blaming everybody and everything except themselves. We saw that up to Saturday. We saw that. So in a public education program, the PAHO, Pan American World Organization, guidelines for communicating about the virus talks about the importance of trust is stressed. Trust is stressed. PAHO notes that to maintain stress, to have to maintain trust, you must do certain things. One international crisis communication specialist, Dr. Rebecca Rice, has said in an interview with Guardian Media recently, respect is an important aspect of crisis communication. One thing I would say about asking public to take action through a crisis situation is to show empathy. Show empathy. Don't shame public into obeying COVID protocols. Article in the Trinidad Guardian of Wednesday, May 19th. In an editorial published May 16th, 2021, about the SOE curfew misstep, the Express said one constant in government's management of the COVID-19 pandemic has been the utter lack of communication in a crisis.
48.3, and very importantly, 48.8, Madam Speaker. If you wish me to elucidate, I'd be very happy to.
Okay, so as far as 48.1, 48.3, and 48.8, as I'll take them in the converse order. I just want to caution the member for Superior. While I've heard what you initially said with respect to what President means, we have to be guided by Standing Order 48.8. This is still an instrument under the hand of Her Excellency, and therefore we are guided by that, and whose conduct we can't question. As far as Standing Order 48.1, I overrule the Attorney General, and as far as 48.1, 48.3, I also overrule the Attorney General. So I uphold 48.8.
I am guided, Madam, and maybe the AG has not read the statement of the President, but these matters is clearly with paragraphs 6 and 10 of it. I'm guided by your ruling, Madam, and perhaps next time the Honourable Attorney General might pick up the whole Standing Order book and belt it at us. But we will not stop speaking, you know. And I'll take the ruling from the Speaker. We will not stop speaking. So your public information exercise, again, has been one that is not to engender trust, one that people are not receiving, they're not taking the message. This was said in the statement itself. People are not receiving the message, and...
Madam Speaker, the reason why I'm rising on 48.8 is that I can assure you that this is not a statement of the Cabinet. This is a statement of Her Excellency, the President.
It's a statement of whom? Sorry, Ma'am.
Therefore, the criticisms that are coming are entirely in relation to the parameters of 48.8. Perhaps the Honourable Member, in her experience, can address this submission a different way, but I don't want to offend the standing orders.
And I uphold the submission.
You know, Madam Speaker, I am guided. You know, recently I started looking at a football match. And I was thinking, look, whilst we are locking down Trinidad and Tobago in England, 21,000 people were attending a football match. 21,000, over 21,000 people attending a football match. And here we are. The Attorney General has a different interpretation, but I'm referring to Section 80 of the Constitution, which clearly declares that the President acts on the advice of the Cabinet, except where otherwise provided. And there are provisions in the law, Madam. So The time is short. I'm looking for injury
but
time.
the point about it is what we are here debating is a statement made under the hand of Her Excellency.
Madam Speaker, I was talking about football, and I hope we will get some injury time for these matters that are rising in such a short 30 minutes that we have, which is speeding fast. In the President's statement, again, paragraph 4C, paragraph 8, in the President's statement, which we have to take note of today, it speaks about the fact one of the reasons is, look, we've had this Brazilian variant, and that's one of the reasons matters have spiked, the cases have risen, deaths and so on. But Madam, this is just, looking at one side of it. Why did that happen? Why did this variant come into Trinidad and Tobago? How did it come? What are we doing to prevent it from happening? And basically it is because of the porous borders that illegal immigrants are coming. The Minister of Health admitted it was a Venezuelan migrant. Persons are coming in, borders are wide open. The Coast Guard has told us over 81 places of entry into our country. And so they are coming in unchecked. Now, I am now told that Brazil is now starting to battle, in addition to the Brazilian variant, they're now battling something called the Indian variant. So it will not be too long unless we close those borders down when that Indian variant is also going to be found in Trinidad and Tobago. So again, where does it come from? How does it happen? What has the government done? And what is the government planning to do about these porous borders? I look at paragraph 8, where the President's statement talks about our circumstances have taken a sudden and distressing turn. Paragraph 8 also speaks to other matters, sudden and distressing turn, as a surge and so on. Why did these things happen? Why? What has been done by government? What do they intend to do? So yes, state of emergency, I want to say clearly it is a result of the incompetence and mismanagement of the government. We're here today because of their inability to deal with this virus. At every step of the way, they've bungled in this matter. Sudden. This administration spent the past year playing politics, I think, with the COVID-19. As I said before, from the very beginning, we tried to get this matter raised. So how did we go from Oxford #1, last year 2020, to now a lockdown and a state emergency? How did we go from we beat COVID, hashtag we beat COVID last year, to state of emergency? Again, I say, one of the major reasons has to do with the lack of vaccines for the population. And paragraph 11 of the President's statement speaks to vaccinations. It speaks about the fact that we know, it says internationally, it is known that vaccination is the answer to dealing with the COVID. The Prime Minister repeatedly tells us that, we can't get vaccines, and every country, how come Barbados got? How come they have vaccinated more of their population than we have? A higher percentage of their population. How come all these small islands around us, they don't have our per capita income, they don't have our GDP? You know what they also don't have, Madam Speaker, you know what they also don't have? They don't have the PNM as a government. So they manage better with the testing, they manage better with the vaccinations, they manage better with the number of deaths, the number of infections. And so at Easter we saw a surge. The Prime Minister said, things were low down in February, but when we came to Easter, they didn't use the word Easter down in March and so on. But when you look at the numbers that they put out, it is clear that there was a spike after Easter. And who was the one telling everybody, come to Tobago? Come to Tobago. Tobago is open for business. And when Minister Rohanson said, 50,000 people traveling, I was amazed. I was watching the TV one night, and I saw the Prime Minister said, nobody said that. Rohanson and Minister's voice is there for everyone to hear and his face to see. 50,000. And then when the CMOH said, he gave a warning, he gave advice. He gave advice. In March, look, we're looking at we're spiking, we have to do something. Who did he give this warning to? Whom was it given to and who ignored it? Was it the Minister of Health? Was it the Honourable Prime Minister? Whom did the CMOH warn that, look, this spike is coming? And that is why I find it hard to believe, you know, that we could say that this is all around the world and it's not just us and oh my poor us, all of us. But what have we been doing and what do we plan to do? It's not sufficient to come back and hark back to what happened last year and what happened January and February. What are we going to do apart from locking down the country? What? What? And the vaccine fiasco. Prime Minister, you missed a golden opportunity when there was an offer from the private sector through Answer McCall, where they said they were willing to offer to pay for vaccines and so on. And erroneously it was reported that they wanted a tax break. That's not what they asked for. They said, I will have to pay X amount of dollars in taxes, so I will take the money and buy the vaccines for the country. There was an offer from Pfizer, we can buy those, we will buy them. And then what you do is you give us a tax write-off. In other words, we'll be paying our taxes up front and you credit those taxes rather we pay it at the end of the fiscal or whatever they're due to pay. They didn't ask for a tax break. They didn't ask for a tax write-off. They asked for tax credit of the amount that they will be using to pay for it. That's what it was. That's what that was. And then, I raised it one night in a meeting. And thereafter, busy minister meeting with them, and they said they will work with private sector business. All that happened, up to now, not a word coming out of that. And you know what? That Pfizer is so much more important now, madam. That is the only vaccine now that can be used on children. All our schools closed down. That's the only one, and up to January this year, Minister Felt his report, he said he doesn't know which one Trinidad will take, which vaccine. There are 3 or 4, we don't know which one. From January. So no real adherence to seriously, aggressively pursuing procurement of vaccines. So the Answer McCall, golden opportunity missed. I'm respectfully suggesting we should aggressively work with the private sector to pursue getting vaccines. This is the real answer, the only answer. Until we get those, this lockdown and every lockdown is not going to make a difference. In fact, in the Caribbean, they're laughing at us. They're laughing at us as a Trinidad lockdown, but they have more cases than us. They have more deaths than us. We are wide open. Our borders are open. There we are. And it doesn't end with the Pfizer issue. I want to ask a question today. We got 100,000 Sinopharm. We thank the government of China. We thank all those governments who have donated to Trinidad and Tobago. But I want to ask, what is the status, and is there any contract or proposed contract with Sinopharm for the government to buy vaccines from Sinopharm? It is alleged that there's a contract that is about to be signed, has not been signed, with Sinopharm to buy many more doses. Is that there? And if it's not Sinopharm, then whom are we going to get vaccines from? What is our plan? Because if we don't have a plan to procure vaccines, and we just put up the hands and cry and say, oh God, nobody giving us. What are we doing? Whom have we approached? Government told us they were approaching Sinopharm. They told us that. They got the free vaccines. Do you intend to buy any from Sinopharm? Bring in more vaccines, we need them. So those are the issues on vaccines arising out of that statement from the presidential statement. Madam, in a limited time, we do have some suggestions. I will leave it up to my colleagues, given the shortness of time for us in this debate. But I want to reaffirm and say that if I were Prime Minister today, the children would have had laptops, primary school, secondary schools. Based on the work done by the government of 2010 to 2015, we retrofitted the San Fernando Hospital. Work was done to commission the Couva Hospital, which you're using. It took a pandemic to open that. So many other facilities that have been used were done by the government at that time. Not me, by the government between 2010 and 2015. What have you done? A Riemann Point 14 were already on the books to be built. Those also being used for COVID. So what are your plans? I ask again. We do have some suggestions. As I say, we will share it with you. And you know, Prime Minister regularly quotes the late Cuban, the Cuban leader, Fidel Castro, the late Fidel Castro. He quotes him to say, history will absolve me. Prime Minister quotes that all the time. History will absolve you. Well, Madam Prime Minister, your incompetence and mismanagement of yourself and your government with this COVID, I want to tell you with due respect for your unprecedented, incompetent reign, I want to let you know that far from absolving you, history will condemn you to eternity for this virus and the effects on the people of Trinidad. Because now we have people out there crying. The business people want to meet you. The people who are collecting their pay. It's okay. They don't have to go to work. What about all those people, businesses who have been shut down? What is the balance? How do we find a way? Because whilst you save lives, you're losing lives through people not being able to earn livelihoods. Madam Speaker, I thank you very much for your time.
Remember to share, like, and subscribe to keep our culture alive.
The PM says to stay home, but you want to go out and roam. Can't you see what's going on? Yeah. Thousands dying, and I'm not lying. Challenging times have come around. Yeah. Mr. COVID, now in town. It's he and Basil that's going round, yeah. Mr. COVID, now in town, yeah. Careful or you'll end up on the ground. Politicians play the blame game. In these times it's just the same. In a campaign of insanity. The IPL just shut down. The bubble burst, pressures all around. You better face reality. Yeah, yeah. Mr. COVID, now in town. It's he and Basil that's going round, yeah, yeah. Mr. COVID, now in town, town, town. Careful or you'll end up on the ground. So you're waiting on a vaccine, hoping it would intervene. They say they're trying to stem the tide, yeah. Well, we gotta eat healthy, build up your immunity to survive this challenging ride. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mr. COVID, now in town. It's he and Basil that's going round. Yeah, yeah. Mr. COVID, now in town. Yeah, yeah. Careful or you'll end up on the ground. We need to raise our immunity in order to stay healthy. Do what you have to do, take charge of your destiny. Yeah, yeah. Observe rules of safety, sanitize regularly. In these challenging times, we need to act responsibly. Yeah, yeah. Mr. COVID, now in town. Yeah. It's he and Basil that's going round, round, round. Mr. COVID, now in town. Yeah. Careful or you'll end up on the ground. The PM says to stay home. Can't afford to go out and roam, 'cause we see what's going on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is Rowley.
Remember to wear your mask. Take care of yourself and each other.